The 70-200 GM2 has been my go-to telephoto lens, but as soon as the 50-150 f2 came out, I was interested to see how these two lenses would stack up against each other, specifically for video. I've seen other videos on YouTube about this lens in particular, but it's mostly from like portrait photographers. The setup that I'm looking to use these lenses for is a B camera on talking head interviews or just general B-roll for interviews or like documentary style shoots where I need autofocus. Hot take, I'm going to ignore price here till the end. These are both very expensive lenses. I'll just say this one's $4,000, this one's $3,800. There's an $800 difference between them. So keep that in mind when you're going through these tests. Starting off, can the f2 replace a bag full of primes? Seeing if the 50-150 can replace a bag full of primes, I have the 50mm 1.2 on here, and we're going to see the difference between 1.2, 1.4, 1.8, 2, 2.8, 4, 2.8, 2, 1.8, 1.4, 1.2. So I like that we can get a little foreground, middle ground, and background. So I'm focusing on Ashley. Keep an eye on this bench and the background of the buildings in Cleveland. This is 4, 2.8, 2, 1.8, 1.4, and 1.2. 4, 2.8, 2, 1.8, 1.4, and 1.2. As far as the 50-150 replacing primes, I think going from 1.2 to 2 is a pretty noticeable difference. Even going from 1.4 to 2 is a pretty noticeable difference. But I think going from 1.8 to 2 is a really negligible difference. I think the f2 could replace 1.8 primes, but I'm not sure if it would replace 1.4 G Master primes, or especially this 50mm 1.2. When it comes to f2 versus f2.8, this is where I'm going to completely let you guys tell me what you think in the comments. This is the $800 question. Is the extra light in bokeh worth it here? 50 f2, f2.8, f2, f2.8, 70mm f2.8, 70mm f2. There's the difference between f2 and f2.8, f2, and f2.8, f2, f2.8. Okay, I'll actually chip in my 2 cents here. I can notice a difference, especially in the background bokeh. At 70mm, f2.8 might be enough to completely blow the background out anyways. So I think f2 at 50mm is more helpful than f2.8 at 70mm. Before I get into a deeper focal length comparison, I want to thank today's video sponsor, Audiio. Audiio offers a fantastic catalog of music, stems, sound effects, voices, and search tools at a great price. There are thousands of tracks and sound effects to choose from, and they have search tools to help you find exactly what you need. Link Match allows you to paste a link from YouTube or Spotify, and their tools will analyze the song and then recommend similar songs that you can license in your projects. If you want to describe what you're looking for, you can tell Hans and they will give you a list of music to choose from. I love these tools because I can use them and quickly find music that would fit my video. Audiio is offering my viewers 70% off their first year of Audiio Pro, making it $59 if you use my code Keith70 or just use the link in the description. Thank you, Audiio, for sponsoring this video. Aperture is only part of the equation when comparing these two lenses. For a B camera lens, I'm typically shooting around 70mm, but there are some times when I wish I had a little bit more on the wide end, especially if I'm filming in a tight location. So the difference between 50 and 70 is pretty important to me. F2, this is 70, and this is 50. 50mm versus 70mm. 50mm, 70. Versus 50, 70 versus 50. Okay, 50 f2, 50 2.8, 70 f2, 70 f2.8. On the telephoto side of these lenses, this is less important to me because I rarely find myself shooting above 125 or 135 anyways, but I still wanted to test this out so I could see the difference. Okay, comparing on the telephoto end, we have the 70-200, we're at 200 right now, and 150. This for me is a little less useful because I rarely find myself needing the reach between 150 and 200. I think the reach between 50 and 70 is a little more useful for me. But if I was using the 150, here is what clear image zoom on the FX6 looks like compared to 200 millimeters. And at 200, I will zoom all the way in on my clear image zoom. For me, I think the difference between 50 and 70 is a little more useful than the difference between 150 and 200. One part of the research on these lenses that interested me was stabilization. The 50-150 doesn't have any stabilization in the lens, even though it's $800 more. So if you find yourself shooting more telephoto, not only do you have, 50 millimeters more of reach, you have stabilization that will help you keep that extended reach stable. So that could be something to keep in mind if you film more at tighter focal lengths. The 70-200 may be what you want to look at. If you shoot at the wider focal lengths and you don't need stabilization, maybe then the 50-150 makes more sense for you. Going into some similarities of these just super quick, the autofocus is great. They both have 4 XD linear motors. Honestly, I couldn't tell a difference, even in low light. That's where I was able to tell a difference between, like third-party lenses or non-G Master lenses was low light. Both of these lenses kept up without missing a beat. They both have 11 aperture blades. Internal zoom, both of these lenses have internal zoom, and I absolutely love that. I went over my 70-200, the GM2, this lens, versus the f4, and the f4 is smaller, but it has an external zoom, like the 24-70 or 24-105, but the internal zooming is intangibly better than the external zooming. It's one of those things that I never would have put in here until I did the test side by side. Both of the aperture rings can be clicked or declicked. I'm filming on my FX6 right now, so the FX6, like if you want to quickly adjust the aperture, you have to go into the direct menu. You can't quickly assign it to a dial like you can on the FX3 or other Sony Alpha cameras. So on my FX6, I find myself also using lenses with aperture rings here that you can click or declick. Sharpness comparison, I'm just gonna cut this one short. I couldn't tell the difference in sharpness between these two lenses for video on my FX3 and FX6. Maybe if you're shooting photos and really zooming in to 300-400%, you could tell a difference. But for me, if you put these at the same aperture and the same focal length, I wouldn't be able to tell the difference. For minimum focus, I'll just put a graphic on screen now that shows the different minimum focusing distances. If you like using lenses with a teleconverter, I would instantly just go for the 70-200 because you can't use a teleconverter with the 50-150. Filter thread differences is another place where there's a massive difference here. The 50-150 has a 95mm coarse thread, and the 70-200 has a 77mm regular thread. I have the Arles lenses and those have 95mm threads, but I think those are regular threads and this is a coarse thread, so that's extra annoying. I don't know if they make an adapter that would take a coarse thread to a normal thread, because I've read people using regular 95mm like the Nisi True Color on here and it gets stuck or it doesn't thread properly. So I don't want to damage my expensive 95mm VND, and also I don't want to damage my very expensive lens if I go with this one. Size and weight difference is interesting. Don't skip this part. I thought this was just boring. Look at the specs and think about it. This one's smaller and lighter, this one's heavier and bigger. But whenever you look at the original 70-200, the original 70-200 was 3.3 pounds and 3.5 inches. So if you're used to the original 24-70 GM1, it's pretty much the size of the 50-150. This lens is humongous, but I guess it's the size of the original GM lens. It's awesome because Sony made this lens significantly smaller and lighter. So if you need a telephoto lens, this one traveled really well. But if you were used to the 70-200 GM1, picking this lens up is just gonna feel like you're holding that lens. When it comes to the 50 to 150 and the 70 to 200 for video, both of them are fantastic lenses. And I think it's almost easier to choose cinema lenses than it is between these two lenses here, because cinema lenses like have a look or, characteristics that you're looking for. At the same aperture and focal length, both of these lenses look exactly the same to me. The features I want are there, like they have internal zooming and the external iris ring. Stabilization's a bit of a bummer with the 50 to 150. I wish there was an option for stabilization, especially because I like to use this on my FX6. This really does come down to how you use the lenses. For me, using autofocus lenses, I'm mostly using these on smaller jobs where I sometimes have more cameras than camera operators, and I have to rely on the autofocus. Both of these lenses definitely can keep up. My use case for the 50 to 150 is more, I think it's better because this could be an A or a B lens if I have a documentary style small crew setup. The 50 to 150 is larger, it costs more, it has some more annoying filters if I'm being honest, but how I work, I would actually use this lens more than the 70 to 200. I do love the 70 to 200 GM2. It has a lot of fantastic features and it's a really small telephoto lens, but the things I've been shooting lately kind of lend themselves a little bit better to the 50 to 150. Let me know how you guys would use these lenses in the comments down below. I feel like this one may be a little bit of a polarizing difference, and I would love to hear your use cases and which one you would pick. Thank you guys for sticking around to the end, and I'll see you in the next one.